Hi, everyone. Welcome to Entrepreneurship by Design with Dr. C. I am so glad you're here today because I have such a beautiful soul with us, Stephanie. Stephanie is a senior living advisor passionate about helping seniors live the best quality of life possible. Stephanie left a legal career to start her two businesses and hasn't looked back since. Stephanie specializes in care planning, managing transitions, caregiver coaching, and connecting seniors with vetted in-home care providers. Thank you so much for being here today, Stephanie. It is such a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. And I would love for you to just dive into your journey, how you got here today, and then we can go a little deeper.
Sure. So I found my passion and calling to be in the senior living industry about 16 years ago, and I left a completely different career to get here. I started my career as a lawyer, practiced corporate and securities law, and decided that it wasn't what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And so after much brainstorming and consideration, to make a long story short, I decided to leave law cold turkey to pursue entrepreneurship. And I started my first business in 2007 and helping seniors. And I really loved it and really felt like this was what I was meant to do, to help seniors and family caregivers. And so I started that first business in 2007 and it's still going. It's called Home to Home. And then kind of as an evolution of kind of what I saw the gaps to be in the senior care market, I started a second business about 5 years ago in home care, and that's called My Care Base.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. And I'm so curious because someone coming from the psychology world and switching careers to myself, what was that shift like for you going from law to now helping in home care and really helping those individuals and families?
It was difficult looking back at how hard it was. I'm not, especially with the first business, I didn't really know what I was doing, but I remember thinking at the time that I thought I knew everything and could figure it out. But I was so wrong. I made a lot of mistakes in the first couple of years. And it was really tough. But I will say, I think these days, there's a lot more resources available for startup entrepreneurs than there was back in 2007, or at least to the extent that I knew back in 2007. And so starting the second business a few years ago, while it was also difficult, the challenges were different. I made sure I had a lot more support around me. But yeah, the first business was hard.
Mhm. No, it absolutely sounds hard. And just that shift of not really having the resources that are maybe available today that we can Google and figure out, but really in the trenches of it, figuring things out as you go. And that's part of the journey, right? Lots of mistakes, lots of things we learn. But what are some of the obstacles that you had to face in those first few years of business as you were learning and growing?
I would say the major one is credibility because it's hard getting, or at least it was hard getting customers with that first business being brand new in the industry. And people would ask you, so how long have you been doing this? And then you'd have to say, oh, I'm just new. And then it's hard finding those first few customers to start building that experience. I would say that was probably the largest hurdle, to get those first few customers or referral sources to really trust me because they liked me and believed in me. So as you build that experience, it gets easier. And then with the second business, it was easier because I could say I have 16 years of experience in senior care in launching this other business. But the first hurdle back in '07 was, this credibility issue, getting the initial customers. There's also issues even today with being a solo entrepreneur and just having to figure things out in isolation. And it is a little bit lonely being a solo entrepreneur. And at the time, I didn't have a lot of people to talk to about my business issues. You have friends and everything for emotional support, and you might have mentors for certain reasons, but not a lot of people to kind of discuss operational issues day to day. So that was another hurdle, kind of just the being alone in being the sole owner.
No, it's definitely taxing on the mind, body, and not having that like peer group to kind of bounce off like ideas or anything along those lines. Of course, you can have mentors, you have the emotional support, but how really having that community. And so as years have passed, do you now have a community that you can tap into that are great resources, but also soundboards for you?
Absolutely. So kind of along the lines of what I mentioned earlier, that these days there's a whole, like a huge ecosystem available for startup entrepreneurs, and technology has made it so that you can connect with a startup founder anywhere in the world much easier now. And there's various groups and forums and programs and advisors in the startup ecosystem to connect you with people who can help you. So I feel like the whole ecosystem is so much more developed and robust that if you needed help with anything as a startup founder, I think the first step is having the courage to ask for help, and like not being scared to be vulnerable and asking for help. But once you get past that, you can actually find help for almost everything you need.
I would agree. And it
Yeah.
definitely is a lot easier, even when I started 6 years ago and how it is now. There's just so many resources available. And you're right, you can connect to anybody in the world. It just with technology and how it has moved significantly in the right direction to helping people and being able to connect those resources. And I'm so curious, as you started to build your business, you started to gain resources or connections with people. What did that really look like in the beginning stages of building your first business?
So the first business, I would say if I could do it all over again, I would do it so differently. And in terms of gathering resources, I feel like I did a much better job building the second business. But the first business, it was all kind of learned by design and experience and being kind of really resourceful in kind of learning from every client job, because every client had different set of circumstances, and you truly learn or gain something from every client experience. And so it was just an accumulation of that experience and resources to now being able to, as an expert, be able to kind of dish out or give advice on the spot very freely because of all those years of experience. And so as I was building up the resources, I looked to other experts in the industry. I looked to benchmarks in other cities on what kind of senior living best practices were. And I looked at what others were doing in terms of service offerings. And then obviously there's a lot of education involved in being a knowledge expert and just knowing how the healthcare system works in our jurisdiction. And so it's partly kind of client experience and knowledge building.
Yeah, I would assume those would be the major aspects of it too. And I'm just curious, what services do you offer? Because I know you offer a lot of different components to just both businesses you've built, but what are services?
So through the two businesses, we cover kind of a huge range of senior living needs that anyone might need kind of when their parent is, I would say, kind of 75 plus. So the first business, Home to Home, offers help in healthcare navigation, care planning, downsize and transition support, care management, as well as executor support, estate assistance post-death. The second business is a different model for home care. It is a vetted marketplace to connect families with vetted caregivers for hire. And so that second business came out of a need that I saw for a slightly different delivery model for home care to keep aging parents at home, where they could hire someone directly, but have someone else manage and vet them. But that it was almost like a nanny placement service.
Yeah.
But that caregiver would work for your family directly.
And there's definitely a need for that. Just, I mean, my parents aren't at that age yet, and hopefully a long time, but I think too, it's just understanding that there is a service out there. And where do you service certain places? What does that look like? So people listening, if they do have a need for this service, they know where to go.
Well, right now we're currently in Vancouver and Toronto. I would say, though, we have gotten clients in other cities. And in that case, I'll just do a special recruit. And so basically, in a way, I'm like a special recruiter, specifically for a family and helping them find the perfect caregiver for them.
Yeah, because I know that can be so taxing on individuals, just like I do have some friends that they're going through that right now here in the States, but how you want to trust somebody who's taking care of your parent, just like they did when we were little, and being able to understand too all the dynamics that happen, but having somebody that can vet and trust individuals to come and care for their parents as well.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal and important.
Yeah, for sure. And the trust is so important, as well as attitude, work ethic, personality. There's so many factors to take into account. And family caregivers are stressed. They might be working full time. They might have kids at home still. They have their own lives. And so what we've learned is family caregivers need all the help they can get in supporting an aging parent.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. And what do you think has been the most rewarding thing you found about your businesses?
For sure, it is the meaning behind the work, in the sense that kind of this feeling of making a meaningful impact on someone's life, even if only for a short period. So through both businesses, I feel like we're providing something that really allows someone to have better quality of life. And, with Home to Home, we have clients who say to us, "Thank you so much. We couldn't have done this without you." And we kind of just see in their eyes, after our job is done, how happy they are. And there's no other feeling like it, or no other feeling to replace that kind of reward. And with the second company, My Care Base, I feel like we're preventing moves into long-term care. We're preventing or delaying moves by making it more accessible for people to have a consistent caregiver for the duration of their needs. And so I think in that sense, that's a huge improvement in quality of life to allow them to remain in the home of their choice.
Absolutely. And especially it's just that comfort and that familiarity, and knowing that they're in the same place, they have the same person helping, because I'm sure just from things I've heard, nursing homes, different types of capacities here in the States, and just like extended family and other aspects, it's kind of like a revolving door. You don't have the same person. You might have the same shifts like that day, but then it like alternates with different people. So I think there's security in that. And that's what like I hear and see and have experienced, like with my late grandfather as well. He was in a home and had the same caretaker every day. And I think it does do wonders of their quality of life. And I'm so curious, because you have two successful, thriving businesses. What are maybe one or two success stories, if you had to choose, that you would share about your businesses?
Success stories. Well, without divulging, client details, I'll give you some anecdotes of interesting clients that we've helped, because we've seen the whole range of family dynamics and really interesting circumstances. Once or twice a year, I'll give you one example from each company. Every once in a while, we get a person who has just fallen into hard times, and we try to help them out of their rut. And specifically, we get maybe one or two a year hoarding situations. And hoarding arises sometimes from circumstance, the way that someone was raised, the circumstances that they find themselves in, maybe some bad luck, and maybe some mental health issues. And so, and sometimes they just need help. We had a woman who had lived in her home for 80 years. She moved in when she was a toddler, and she just never left. And she lived in that home for through 3 generations, all passing away before her. And she never married, doesn't have kids, and she was the end of the line, the family line, and the sole person living in that house. And it was a mansion. And she was lovely. And I just think no one taught her how to manage a house properly. And so she didn't know how to recycle. She didn't really cook for herself. And she, just didn't have great habits, but she was really willing to accept help. And so we got her out of that hoarding situation. It was about a 3-month project. And we got her into a clean condo. And it was one of the biggest jobs we've ever done, even to date. And, my team was, all hands on deck. And I was so proud of how everyone went out of their way to really help her in the sense that we washed every single dish before putting it into her new kitchen. We cleaned all her clothes. We didn't want to move dirty things from one home into a clean home. We wanted to actually clean her things and put it into a clean home. And just her level of appreciation at the end, and just kind of relief, because I don't think she knew how to get out of her situation. Yeah. So that always has stayed with me as one of the most memorable jobs, because those kind of jobs are somewhat challenging and difficult. And so to finish it is a huge accomplishment on our part. The other kind of success story is something that kind of I see more than once in the second business, where we truly are allowing people to stay at home and not have to move to long-term care. And so we have cases where something unexpected happens and someone has to go from 0 care to 24/7 care. And so to build a team of 3 to 4 with all at once, and where all their schedules jive, is really hard, actually, because it's like finding 4 matching jigsaw puzzles that match together perfectly, and providing daytime and nighttime care 7 days a week. That often needs at least a team of 3, maybe even 4. So that's been something that we've been able to accomplish a few times, with a lot of hard work and a patient family. And it's, the feeling is amazing to know that we're helping the seniors stay in the home of their choice.
Well, I appreciate what you're doing, because I think it's definitely such a need in this world where people can have that comfort and know they're being taken care of. It's just that release of having the stress when they're maybe in a nursing home versus at home, or just long-term care, whatever that may look like for each individual, each family. But I love both those stories. And I so appreciate even just mentioning the first one of the whole team was really pitching in to make sure that she moved into a home that was clean with all her clean stuff. And it's those little things mean so much too. They seem small, but they're massive, and really understanding that magnitude of the appreciation, but also it's just, you can feel your heart through, even the screen right now, just how much you love what you do and what you're doing for all the individuals that you're helping and all the families that you're helping. And even with the second client too, just being able to help those clients feel more at home, feel secure, having a whole team that fits like a puzzle, like you mentioned, and being able to know that they are secure and they have what they need and their needs are being met. So thank you for sharing that. And with everything that you have accomplished, you've accomplished a lot, running 2 successful businesses. How do you manage to really integrate work and life and still be able to do everything you're doing?
Well, I work a lot. So it is tough for sure. Time management is one of my kind of ongoing life issues. But I think it's just a commitment to fitting in the things that bring me joy. But I probably work 70 to 80 hour weeks, just with both businesses, especially since the first one is quite stable now, but the second one is still in early stage, kind of like infancy. it's like raising a child and making sure it becomes self-sufficient. That's kind of how it feels like.
Yeah.
And so it is a balancing act for sure.
I believe it. I mean, running through businesses myself and this channel, it's a lot, but I think you're right. It's just the transparency of it's not easy, but it's worth it. And that's what I'm hearing too.
Yeah. And if you surround yourself with good teams, that's really important so that you can have help with either, people working with your clients, or you can have help on the management side. Having a good team is everything.
Yes, no, it definitely is. Makes life a lot easier. And
Yeah.
I'm so curious, what advice do you have for people who are thinking of starting a business or they're in it, the beginning infancy stages of it?
I have a lot of tips actually and advice. I think the first thing, just kind of putting myself in the shoes of someone who's considering it, I think the first hurdle is probably the courage and the confidence piece.
Mm.
And so I would encourage people who are thinking about it but don't know where to start or are really scared, to just talk to some founders and entrepreneurs who have made that leap from a stable career. So you want to talk to people who are maybe more middle-aged, who spent some time in a stable career and then decided to make the leap, and kind of like what they did to prepare and what are some of the things that they learned. But I think having the courage and the confidence and the mindset is probably the first hurdle. And then the second thing is preparation. Learn as much as you can about whatever industry it is that you're thinking of starting a business in. Take really a deep dive. I took a sabbatical to kind of really learn as much about senior living as I could before I launched the first business. But you can learn by doing informational interviews. These days, there's kind of like an endless source of, different forms of media through which you can learn about anything. Talk to industry experts, look at where the gaps are in the market. If you can, talk to customers kind of in that market to see what their frustrations and pains are. And that might help you form some ideas about gaps. Because once you start a business, you get asked a lot, how are you different than what's out there? So if you go into it knowing how you're different or how you're filling a need, that's important. The last piece of advice I would say is surround yourself with a good team. And team can mean a lot of things. So what I did differently with the second business that I didn't have the self-awareness to do with the first one is I got mentors and advisors, and those mentors and advisors may come and go. Like it's not to say that you have to pick someone and stick with them for years, but for whatever stage you're at, reach out and try to find those people that can help you get past that stage. And then once you reach the next stage, there might be a different set of people to help you through that stage. My mentors and advisors have been really invaluable. I also recruited or built a board of directors. That's been really helpful as well, to have a board who are focused on the growth of the company, because they have fiduciary responsibilities also, but they're in the trenches with you. And they want to problem solve with you. So it's just an expansion of the team. So, and as well, then I have an internal team. So I have tech developers with my care base. I have a CTO. And then with Home to Home, I have a customer service team that works with my clients day to day. And so having the internal team is equally important.
Yeah, no, those are phenomenal tips. And I think so important for anybody on this journey, just having the support system, having a team, whether it's externally, internally, both, whatever fits the need for that business. But I agree that like a lot of times mentors, they take you as far as they can, and then you move to a new mentor, and just moving forward to just constantly expanding and growing if you want to scale your business or grow it in any capacity. And I'm so curious because it popped in my head when you said it. I was like, oh, I want to know. So with just how you are different, how your businesses are different from what's out there, what would you say makes your companies different than others out there?
With the first one, some of our services are more unique than others. So someone who's moving or transitioning, there are companies out there that can help with the move. But what I found a niche to be is there's not a lot of healthcare navigators in the industry. And to be honest, I'm not 100% clear on why. It's such a meaningful, service. And a lot of people do need help with healthcare navigation, but there just doesn't seem to be a lot of competition in that area. And so because we offer that, I think that's one of the ways that we're different, in that we can help people form a solution and then implement it as well. We're not just the implementers. Right. The second business, My Care Base, we're different in the sense that we offer a slightly different model for home care delivery. One of the things we do differently is that we give the customer choice. We let them meet the candidates and pick the one they want. A lot of agencies will assign caregivers based on who they think is a good fit, which is still good, but we felt that giving the customer choice, getting that buy-in early on, what it's done is it's reduced the incidence of caregiver turnover, in the sense of, the caregiver's more happy being able to meet the client before accepting the job. The client is more happy having met the caregiver before deciding, yes, this is the right person. And so we don't get a lot of requests, from a client saying, you know what, I don't think this is a good fit. Can you try someone else? Because they've had that time to interview or vet them. We also really care about the whole ecosystem. So for us, it's not just about matching a senior with a caregiver, but the whole ecosystem around supporting higher caregiver wages, and also supporting the family caregiver, and making it home care a sustainable solution for the senior. So what we've done is we've altered the typical cost structure of what it takes to run a home care delivery model, and we're passing on the savings to both the customer and the caregiver, so that the caregiver can earn about 25% more than what they would make through a care agency. And the client actually pays about 10% less, 10 to 15% less than what they would pay care agency. And that's all to do with having a very lean cost structure.
I love that, because you don't hear about that at all, at least here in the US. And from my little experience with it, I'm sure there is something maybe similar, but I haven't heard of that. And I think it's really important that it's just the quality of life for both the client and the caregiver that is being based off the pay and everything along those lines as well. And I think that's really important. I just appreciate you sharing that, because it just gives context of what you're doing in this world and how you're making it much more positive and a positive impact on those that are going through these transitions, because I can imagine how hard it is with those transitions. I've seen it like with my dad and his father, and my mom and my great grandmother. But I think it's important to know that there's a service like that out there, and I can't wait to see it grow and continue to grow, because I know yeah, of course. I mean, it's true. I think there's a lot more people hitting that age and getting older. We're all going to hopefully, knock on wood, get older and have that aspect. But I think it's something that's really a solid foundation that's being built and will continue to grow, because there is such a need for it. And I'm curious, because there's so many people going through transitions when they're living at home or having to bring in a caretaker. What do you see most common or common themes when they're going through that transition period, the families and the individual?
I see family caregivers getting burnt out, because I think we live in a world today where there's a lot of other stresses going on in the world. And so family caregivers don't necessarily have as much time as they used to dedicate towards aging parents. And also in the modern day, not everyone lives close to their parent, and long distance caregiving is really, really tough. And so I do see a lot of caregiver stress. I think there needs to be more resources around supporting the family members. I see a lot of moves into long-term care, primarily due to caregiver burnout. So specifically, I see a lot of cases where seniors are moving to long-term care because simply the family doesn't see any other solution. They're too burnt out. They're not getting proper care at home because they can't find the proper care, or it's getting too expensive. Because 24/7 care can get very expensive, and it's only the very fortunate that have kind of the finances to be able to support that without drawing equity from their house.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And I appreciate you sharing all of this wonderful information so people can really kind of look a little bit closer of just planning ahead, being prepared. And that's essentially what you help them do. And then also you have the solution for it too. You have the whole spectrum.
The other thing I'll say is another thing, a common thing I see is, and for any family caregivers who are listening and trying, like, about to embark on this caregiving journey with an aging parent, is resistance and denial from the parent. So for those listening who are going through that or have gone through it, certainly you are not alone. In fact, you're in the majority if you're talking to your parent about maybe making some changes or getting home help, and they think they're just doing fine, and they don't see any need for help. And for a lot of family caregivers, it's very frustrating because what they feel is right for mom and dad is maybe different from what mom and dad feel is right for them. And so there's this role reversal that happens in that you want what's best for them, but you still need to let them make their own decisions.
That's very powerful, but it puts it in perspective of what a lot of individuals are going through, where if they do have an aging parent or parents and having that role reversal because they're used to, like, the parents are used to being the parents, and now it has shifted and there's just a lot of responsibilities now on the children of adult or of aging parents as well. But being able to have I feel like more conversations around this is important. So people are aware of it, they're prepared for it, and knowing that they want the best for their parents, and the parents want the best for themselves too, but it's not always aligned. But getting on the same page, I think, can be challenging. I foresee that being challenging for a lot of families.
Yeah, and there are caregiver peer support groups that I think are really, really valuable and underused, underrated and underused. So I would encourage people to go find a peer support group. Just like as a business owner, mastermind groups have been really valuable it's the same parallel, right? As a founder or company owner, you have mastermind groups where you connect with other founders who have gone through or are going through exactly the same struggles and challenges you're experiencing, and you help each other through it. And maybe you're lucky enough to find someone who has already gone through what you're going through, and they can kind of help you through it. Same thing goes for family caregiving. Is a lot of these struggles and challenges that you may go through with an aging parent, you can bet someone has gone through the same thing, whether it's when you're dealing with cancer or Alzheimer's or Parkinson's or heart failure, you name it, any condition or any kind of circumstance, there likely is someone who's been through it and can help you.
Yeah. No, that's so true. And I didn't even think of that either, but it's like, I always learn so much from everybody I interview. So I do appreciate everything you shared with us today, Stephanie. And I would love to know, where can people find you, use your services? We're going to link everything below, but if you could let us know too.
The best way is probably to reach out on our social media platforms or to email me. And I believe my contact details will be in the episode details.
Yep.
Yeah, just to reach out, email, or reach out on social media.
Perfect. Well, thank you again, Stephanie, for being so transparent and open and just sharing your beautiful journey and how much you're doing to really help individuals in this world and having the positive impact you are. So thank you so much for your time and your energy today.
Thank you so much. It's been great chatting with you.
Likewise, make sure to like, subscribe, comment below. What was the biggest takeaway from Stephanie today? I'm sure she would love to see that comment, and we will see you on the next episode.